Bop.
We're back to normal.
Good morning.
Hey, when you say that, it's almost like a recording. Like I hear it the same way in my head every time. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you back in the shop.
Yeah, it feels good. It's been a while. Feels like anyway.
I have to remind myself that you weren't sick, that you were just on holiday.
Just was super sick and flew all the way to Texas, and it's a bad look. Yeah. Did I see you were up at like 3 a.m. today?
Yeah. Whoops. Busted.
Cool.
No, I was just trying to get kiddo back to sleep.
Yeah.
Foolishly opened Instagram.
Yeah. Sorry. I was there. Or it popped up and I was like, wait a second. Isn't it really early right now? I'm just used to the radio silence until about noon here.
Yeah. Yep. How are you?
Pretty good. Yeah. How are you?
Yeah. Good. Really good.
What's good? Anything good
That's good.
in particular?
Yeah. Did you ever listen to Reply All?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, the Breakmaster Cylinder space stuff?
Yeah.
I've just been listening to that whole album. I feel like my audio soundscape in my head is just like broken up clips of that dog and robot. If I make some strange noises, that's why. No, really good here. We have just wrapped up our end of financial year. The last time we chatted was our last day, and we were like push, trying to get a few last sales across the line to meet our made-up numbers. And we got our made-up numbers.
Oh.
Exceeded some of them. So, yeah, really good.
Cool.
So, biggest year of sales ever.
Is that like all sales?
Yeah, all sales, custom and product.
Cool.
And made a little bit of profit. That's rather novel.
That's good.
It's a bit of cash in the bank. Yeah, good. Team's flowing well. Yeah, no complaints.
Very good.
Yeah.
That sounds nice. We're making, back to our conversation about money last time, but this is like the first time I remember having a product that felt like it was a really big change. I mean, every time I'd sell calendars, actually, back when I started that, like, and I had basically no overhead, it was always like cost from making them. And then it was like, oh, that seems like a lot of money because I like had no revenue otherwise.
Yeah.
But this selling the dust boot feels like the first time in a long time that's like, it's made an impact rather than just like trickling out a few sales, like, enough people ordered at once that it was like, oh, well, we can buy the materials now and pay rent.
Yeah, it's nice to get those little boosts. I find that product launches as well. Like if we get a good little run on something over a short space of time, you get that nice injection of cash. Yeah, which, like you say, it feels different to that job by job trickle.
Oh, yeah.
You feel like you've already spent everything by the time you're on to the next thing.
We always talk about that, friends and I that do woodworking here, that I always call it feels like the business Ponzi-Scheme where you're like using one job to pay for the next, almost, is what it feels like, even though it's never really the truth. It just always feels like, well, that got slim. I better get another deposit here, feed the beast.
The cash flow beast, yeah. So much of it rides on cash flow, I reckon.
Yeah.
Ooh, I've got 2 microphones on, dual wielding. Well, I'll just leave that one on.
See if anybody catches it and you've just got both sides of your collar. New headphones.
My bib. Yeah, no, I totally recognize that feeling. One job to the next. I mean, that's how we started, really. It was just one job to the next. Crawling.
And you got out of it, though, seemingly.
Yeah. Yep.
How do you tell us all how you did that?
How? Good question. I'm going to say volume.
Yeah.
At a certain point, it all just starts to overlap. And I reckon that's probably just for us and the size business we are. It's a certain number of jobs and it's a certain amount of revenue per month. That means that things just start flowing rather than.
Yeah, that makes sense. We had
really
very
connected,
very fleeting moments of that when we were in the heat of the most job shop work we ever really did. I mean, I'm a broken record with this, but it always felt so fleeting. That moment would go quickly, and with it, kind of the comfort. And, sometimes we'd have people working more hours and then quite a bit more hours or overtime or something. And then all of a sudden, all of your gains from that seem to disappear just as quickly. So it's an interesting scenario you're discussing of like how it turned into something more than that, I guess.
I think consistency is key, really. Like for a very, very long time, everything was very up and down and wavy for us. So we'd have a big run of work. I would stop quoting because I was busy trying to get a job out the door.
Mm-hmm.
We'd get to that end of that job and then it'd be this kind of quiet lull of like post-job reprieve, which was nice in a sense. It's quite a natural rhythm in a way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, then your cash flow's drying up. You're still paying people, and it's not like there's nothing to do, but it was that very lumpy structure flow. And so I think the biggest change for us over just in the last year or so is just trying to get out of that cycle. And even when we're busy, still make time, even if it's just an hour a day for quoting. So there's always fresh work coming in, assuming you've got leads.
I need those leads and I need them now or I'm out.
Yeah, just that trying to keep everything more consistent. And so the production flow stays more level, cash flow stays more level. And it's still lumpy for sure, but it means that everything's kind of tracking much more stably. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That I remember. So you were saying something about the ebb and flow of projects, and I totally recognize that. It's like the ups and downs of all too much, and then I would be bad at quoting or take too long and people would move on, and same thing.
Yeah. Those poor people, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
If you're listening.
Me too. I'm probably doing it right now on accident. But what I was thinking about that is laughing to myself that's basically what my experience of going to school was like. Crazy amounts of intense activity and then like exhausted into a heap and partying for a weekend. Partying, relaxing with your friends that you don't get to see ever, for me anyway. And then I would go back to like the crazy again. And
this is
seemingly,
right?
Yeah, well, Element Architecture School. And I feel like that's very similar to that same pattern. Not that we have a party every end of project, but it was never that. We had moments of consistency, but I always felt like it was maybe for me anyway, dealing with more than just actually making the things. It's a lot just all the time, I guess, and never felt consistent. Anyway.
Yeah.
Screw that.
No, I don't know. Yeah. It's a strange thing.
Mm-hmm.
As positive as the consistency is, I do find myself in a sort of constant state of overwhelm because there's no natural.
Yep.
Like I think it is quite inorganic to do this.
Yes.
It's just like push, like constantly gently pushing to maintain that constant workflow. It means there's very little downtime.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't stop thinking about that dog.
We'll have to find that one.
Good morning. Oh no, someone's podcast is having a pensive moment and they've run out of music. Hurry to the sad marimba planet.
Oh, he's got like all 30 albums on Bandcamp. It's amazing.
Jeez.
But there's kind of no, it's not stressful, but there's no reprieve. And so I think what I need to get better at is like scheduling in some reflection time.
Yeah.
Just kind of force myself to stop and think because I'm terrible at stopping and thinking. Like that's definitely one of my weak points. But yeah.
If I had to guess from what you've told me, I would guess your two other points of getting over the hump of the business Ponzi scheme were probably having a business manager and then capturing the data and then having to be able to use it then, like going forward and quoting or like, choosing a little more, I don't know, cautiously your jobs or something. I don't know. Kind of worked for me at times.
Qualifying harder definitely helped. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Quoting instead of just quoting everything.
Yeah.
Just trying to say no and
Mhm.
quote stuff that's better suited to us.
Yeah.
But I think that just that regularity and consistency is the big one.
Yeah, for sure. Finishing my thought about money and new products. Usually I feel like you have the ebb and flow of like paying for the materials and the labor and all those things. So that'll still come. But what I'm excited and hopeful for is that a lot of people haven't discovered that we have this dust boot yet, right? And that money should continue. The revenue still should continue. Whereas I feel like a lot of the things I've come up with, it's like there's a burst of interest and then it just disappears. And I'm, exploring different ways to use advertising and, getting in touch with people that potentially could want it, because there's a lot of people. And then there's also other machines to go, like yours, to hopefully qualify. And we've been kind of experimenting with, I've been calling it the test fit guarantee, but it's like an idea for especially people maybe in the United States that if we don't have a compatible match for their machine yet, but we think it may work, they think it may work, that we will give them a full refund and like pay for their shipping back if it doesn't work with their machine and they don't use it. So then we can say it works or it doesn't work.
Yeah, so it's research for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they don't have any concerns then.
Totally. Yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to putting that to the test and promoting it, to be honest, because I think it's going to be so much better.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I sent you that video the other day, right, of like how small our little...
I went to show Ricky it, and it was a story, and I couldn't find it again. I was like, "Oh, Ricky, you should have seen how tiny their little duct was."
2-inch.
Now I'm touting size, so here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, because you're a shop saver, right? What's Shop Saber's market share like? Do you have any sense of how many machines there are out there?
I think I remember seeing at one point there's 5,000 some machines over there.
Okay.
Span. I don't know how that was, probably last year. It's really hard to say. I haven't tried to do any research, but
that's quite a few.
It seems that there's enough people that have taken the time to contact us asking if we will make one for their machine or it'll work for their machine. Laguna or Avid, or there's just, there's a bunch of others. Multicam, somebody asked, that it's a problem that seems like it's not well resolved. And I'm not going to say that ours is perfect by any means. And I think it works pretty well ultimately, but there's always a scenario where it's not going to work for somebody. And
for sure. Yeah.
We'll see how many, well, hopefully that it's far more than not.
Yeah, no, I think could be a lot of potential there. Exciting.
Yeah.
I've always been attracted to the concept of making tools. Like, I'm calling dust boot a tool, but tool-related stuff. I'm not sure why, but there's something very attractive about making things for making things.
In a certain sense, I've felt like the bar is low for making... So you make the functional solution, but then the bar is pretty low to make it aesthetic too. As long as it's not like too sharp and too blocky, usually it's like that looks pretty cool, like
that'll do. Yep.
It's a bonus.
Yeah. Well, and also being functional beyond just the bare bones functionality too. Like you've got that nice sort of magnetic stuff going on and just a bit more considered.
Yeah.
A bit more designed, I suppose.
Can't help myself, honestly. It's nothing I'm doing. It's just my OCD.
Yeah.
No, I know. I don't. We're working on a couple other. I've just been calling it the duct tower. I think I posted in a couple stories, but we're working on this like thing that holds your duct.
Yeah.
What?
I just hear the duck like quack quack. Ducks, and then imagine plugging that into the dolly. The dolly. I actually used that so much after I got into it that they limited me. I was banned for a certain amount of hours. They're like, "You've done this too much. You need to go home." You've used your server allocation.
Basically, yeah. I have a lot. I withheld just flooding you with way too many images of things, but I have a lot that are honestly, some are very disturbing. Like they're like taking body parts and mashing them around, and it's not like gory or anything, but it's just like a little bit of a house of horrors sometimes.
Awesome.
The duct tower, to finish up, we've done a few kind of mostly prototype, very rough prototypes, and it works really well. It like holds the duct, especially with the Shop Savers. They have this air cylinder that makes the Z be able to retract faster. It basically takes the weight off of the spindle head so that it doesn't have to use only the motor. And it's a great idea, but it also sticks up like probably almost 20 inches over top of everything else. So you've got this big thing that wants to catch the duct all the time.
Oh, that's right. You've got that huge extension, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I always wondered about
So that's why we had that stupid, I called it the smokestack, which was just a giant piece of ducting, metal ducting that used to go up. But anyway, we've got this other thing because it's definitely a problem with Shop Savers that other people have, and there's never really been a good resolution. So we're onto something, and we're just kind of evolving it till we can turn it into something a little more polished and hopefully be something we sell to here soon.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
We had a really sketchy moment the other week, which wouldn't have happened if we'd had a baby pants. So cutting all these birch panels for a climbing gym, and it was such that the compression cutter was running like right down the edge of the sheet, but leaving just a tiny strip of material. And so getting all that like stringy, strandy birch nonsense that you get sometimes, which obviously wasn't getting sucked up by our pitiful dust extraction on Trinity. And so some of the stringy stuff got wrapped around the tool, and then the machine went to put the tool back in the tool changer, which is the carousel tool changer, and had all this stringy nonsense on it. And the tool changer on Trinity's got this really weird mechanism where there's like a turned, probably like 2.5-inch steel tube that's like almost a foot long that comes up out of the tool changer and the sort of park the tool in that, and then it retracts. Anyway, the tubes are kind of loose and they just sit in the tool changer. Anyway, because of the birch spaghetti that was attached to the tool, the next tool got like stuck in this tube. Spindle picks it up. There's this bit of steel tube hanging off the bottom of the tool holder, and then it turned the spindle on, like 10,000 RPM or something. And John was out there. He's just said it made the most horrific noise as it tried to spin up this lump of steel. Anyway, thankfully it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And John managed to get the E-stop fast enough, but it shook the whole spindle loose off the gantry. Like all the bolts were loose. Like there's so much vibration.
My word. But yet is this the one that has the potential bearing problem?
No, the other one. No.
Yikes.
Oops. Yeah. So that's exciting.
That little thing that comes up, goes straight up and down in Z. It doesn't have like it's not going to like try to run through the side of your potential new baby pants.
No, it's straight up and down.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things I think about when people are like, will this work with my machine? And I'm like, I don't know what kind of weird stuff's going on when a tool changes, but if you're just cutting, probably.
Yeah. But your tool changer's got that weird sort of horizontal load.
Yeah.
That's about
So it can take some movement, but if it wanted to just like completely rotate through, it's a flat plane, so it would go through the brush ultimately, but
like an umbrella tool changer, you mean? Yeah. I've never seen an auto with anything like that.
No, that'd be crazy. So you got a UR robot that comes in and give me that.
That'd be sweet. I got some time on the machines this week actually, because John was out sick, and so Josh and I had 2 days of playtime out on the floor. So Josh is usually stuck in Fusion, and I'm usually stuck in quoting land. And we had 2 glorious days of slinging plywood chips, which was great timing actually, because we're trying to train Josh up as sort of a backup machinist. So instead of it always falling to me as being the plan B, get Josh trained up so he can go out and cover on the machine. So it was good. Great fun.
Yeah. Were you working on the threadboard?
I have been chipping away at that in my R&D slot. Yeah. Just working on little accessories on the pencil sharpener.
Those were cool.
The board itself is pretty much resolved in terms of how we make that on the other machines. But yeah, the accessories now are what I'm kind of focusing on, all the little pegs and bits and bobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it takes quite a long time to program a part I don't know if you saw that little reduced shank,
Yeah.
double-ended part that I made the other day. So that was it's quite involved, kind of, drawing that part's easy, but then like programming it on the pencil sharpener to a point that it's safe and reliable takes quite some time.
I've never fully understood. I guess maybe I should know the G code better, but when you tell it you want to do a thread for a certain amount of length, are you doing that by hand?
No.
Okay. I was going to say, you'd have to calculate the points and I guess it's probably a key and cycle or something, but
No, the threading code all is just straight out of Fusion.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then you're just appending or inserting wherever you want, like other movements and stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Tool changes.
Yep. All that.
Spindle changes.
Spindle changes. Yeah.
Got a quick one here.
Oh.
There's your tower of ducks.
Tower of duck.
Thanks, Stella. Look at their faces, though. God.
Messed up.
This one's pretty good. There's like a giant one at the top that's a goose.
Do we know how it works?
I think it's got to be something that like it's eating other images and then mashing them up.
But like that has perspective. Like, are they 3D models or are they collages?
Dude, what's insane is you can say like, I want it to be a photo, a cartoon, a rendering. Tower made of ducks, 3D rendering.
This is great podcast content.
Yeah, just wait for us to sit and do this, guys. It's real fun. It's kind of crappy. Oh, that's
even
disturbing.
that, like it's got it's got a 3D model of a duck and it's built a tower of cake out of it, right?
It's a pyramid of duck made of ducks with a larger duck on top.
It looks like a painting. So you can like say like, I want a painting in the style of this artist, Yeah, we'll throw some photos up, but I'll give you the one while we're sitting here. There's so many in here.
Oh, Justin, what have you done? Oh my God.
They're, I didn't ask for, this is the bad part about these is I didn't ask for the rest. I only wanted the baby pants by the sawdust.
You're going to want to see the YouTube episode this week.
That's incredible.
Don't even know. I don't even know. It's very entertaining, but so disturbing. I'll stop there.
Amazing. Well, if I had your cell number in my phone, I would save some of those down as your contact picture, I think.
We can do that.
Yeah, just cut out all of that.
Cut. Do you want nerdy things about Shopify and checkout and Airtable, or
always.
the lofty question of what's your dream product?
Woo! Dream product. Jeez, that I want.
But I was thinking like what you want to make. Like what's the thing you've always wanted to make, but you haven't been able to either figure it out or it's just too crazy to make?
Well, yeah, I've got something that kind of fits that category. It's a part that I think I was just trying to justify getting a 5-axis mill, to be honest. I was trying to think of a part that I'd make on it. So it's like it's a table leg system, basically.
Yeah.
So one of our key clients that I work with a lot works in the commercial sort of office fit out space.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of demand there for a leg system that can be adapted to sort of any tabletop or any size table, any size, any material. So we've bounced around a few ideas for a leg system, and I've got this sort of 5-axis aluminium part in my head that would probably have then a threaded timber dowel or some other timber element that engaged with it, but it's just like a lumpy bit of billet machined into a sort of a multi-axis part.
Mm-hmm.
Leg system. That's my answer.
Leg system.
What about you?
And now all I can think is I want to make the image of the leg system in Dolly.
He's hooked.
You know what's funny is I didn't think, as I asked you this, I was like, what would mine be? And I don't know if I know what that was. I spent a lot of time early on when I first quit my architecture job trying to make and sell this desk that I'm using. There's some images on our website. We just call it the knack desk.
I've seen that on your website.
Never really, I I learned a lot about what to do and not do in products because of that. And it's kind of an interesting, I'll never really regret it because I bought the CNC router for it basically, but I also didn't understand enough about, I don't know, selling furniture on the internet or how to make a profitable product that it was always a labor of love. Like it never made, I think we've probably made a dozen of them or something. And I just kind of haven't totally killed it off, but it's kind of there for reference, I guess now. That was kind of my dream product for a while. I've always wanted to come back and make another version of a desk that is more profitable, that kind of embodies some of its characteristics, but that isn't impossible to make and is affordable for people.
Quite complex. It's very design school.
Yeah, for sure. I designed it in school. And I was like, oh, I should make these someday. And had a lot of people tell me they couldn't make it, or it evolved from the time I started that process. But yeah, it's not a good product, I don't think. It never really was.
Yeah. How do you feel about culling products? Have you culled anything?
A little bit. The iMac bases, we still have a few actually. It's like this. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's
You're turning those off, are you?
Yeah, they've discontinued that whole product line. So instead of making a new batch and having them sit potentially, I was like, well, maybe we'll make the new version. And we just never, I don't honestly like the way that I've tried different versions of that. I've had requests for them, but they did okay. But we kind of jumped into that at the end of the iMac line, that it had the kind of wedge foot. But
yeah.
I'm honestly pretty bad at it. Other than that, I mean, I've kind of noted that those are discontinued. The desk, as you can see, is just up there still. And I guess I can't quite kill it off because it's like a memory place for me or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I know that feeling. I've had products that I've hung on to probably too long because of some association I had with them.
Yeah.
Like there was one sort of a range of stuff that we used to make. That was kind of our first foray into plywood. It's how we ended up getting into ply as a material. And it was very simple and very lightweight. And it summed up a lot of my feelings about how I like to design things in terms of honest materials. And it was completely unfinished for a long time.
Yeah.
Trying to make strong things from thin material. And I think, we probably hung on to that far too long, to the point where through the way our processes had evolved, it became either completely unprofitable to make, or our quality control standard had crept up and up and up over the years to the point where this product that was supposed to be very simple and bare bones had become it was trying to be something that it should never have been. It was trying to be sort of finished furniture, and it sort of got to a price point where it just didn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still hung on to it because I was sort of attached to some of the ideals around it in terms of where it had come from.
Do people tell you directly like, hey, Jem, we got to kill this? Or do you think they're hesitant too?
I think they're probably typically pretty hesitant too, for the most part.
That's pretty common.
But we're getting better at that. Like we're getting much more trigger happy in terms of just killing up things that don't feel right.
Yeah.
Or at least pulling them offline.
I'd say that on that note, I think I have the same people. We talked about this a little bit before, but most everybody that's worked here doesn't have a design background. So they'll always kindly default to me on any design questions, which is both good. But I think I've also tried to foster no, you need to have your own design feelings, because I can't just have all the feelings, or nothing will ever get done because I'll just sit there and stew on it too long, and because nobody's arguing with me about it. But what was the other side of that? Apparently I'm spacey today.
So insert space sample.
Oh, the other side of that, kind of unrelated, but related, is the whole idea that I feel like it's very common. The older you get in anything, life, you start to get more and more closed-minded about your potential things you design. Because I'll immediately start to cancel out all that's going to cost too much, or that would take us forever to finish, or you kind of start killing those things. Whereas in contrast, I would have probably never made this desk, right? That led to so much else that was good, even if it in itself was a problem.
Totally.
And that naivety, like we said before, the naivety is so valuable. And I actually like really enjoy that when I start working with somebody and they don't have all the like, they ask the questions that maybe some people go, well, why are you, that's stupid. Why would you say that or something? And I'm like, these are the kind of naive questions we need. Like I always feel like they get to a good place with, they ask questions, any type of naivety usually isn't hindered then by experience that could hinder a potential good solution in any way.
Yeah. That's a great point. I've been, it's a bit of a tangent, but I've been aware of that in the last few weeks as I've handed off production management. And I'm no longer the person, the key person to come and ask about how to do that or what to do next or blah, blah, blah.
I'm jealous.
And I've had a few moments of kind of being aware of like, I've got an answer for almost everything in the shop, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I need to get that out of my head. But I was asking myself, like, why do I have an answer for all these things? And it's like, in terms of naivety, it's because I have naively tried to do everything related to this business, and I've failed and I've made mistakes and I've pulled everything apart and I've broken everything and I've failed at everything. And so in doing so, I now have a lot of sort of built up answers and knowledge around these broken things.
Yeah. That's the good side of it for sure is when you have the experienced person that says, you're going to cut your finger off, don't put your hand in front of that spinning thing, or, this takes longer, whatever it is. I mean, there's the kind of logistical side to it, but for sure, that's got to be a weird experience though. I'm sure they're still coming to you for some stuff. It's just not the majority.
Just not being the default go-to, that's all.
Yeah.
Just no.
That's cool.
It's good.
Sounds great.
It's a good thing. Yeah, I'm getting way more product development time done during the day, not just in the early morning now, which is nice.
So you've changed your schedule, your diary some?
I've just extended my development slot longer into the morning.
That's nice.
Getting it done. I'm going to fill up my coffee. Still feeling that wallaby in my quads a little bit.
The wallaby. The wallabeast.
What are your hobbies, Just?
Business. Designing and making things. It's kind of been a weird, I don't know what to say. Like it's kind of been somewhat negative, I suppose, especially in like my personal relationships of like that I have definitely verged towards what most would probably consider like workaholism. And in my take on that, I kind of recognize that more. I think it's probably better to have a break and not do what's considered work, even if I like truthfully feel like I enjoy a lot of the times like my free time, let's just say, of work would be more on the design side and less on the like solving some logistical problem, designing a product, or I feel like that's my like release time of there's no responsibility. So that was always great. And I'm actually, I don't know, pretty bad otherwise at hobby type things. I play video games with my brother online, like over the internet. That's
non-work. It's nice.
A little bit of non-work. How about you?
Yeah, I used to play a lot of video games in my youth.
Old man.
I can't remember the last time. Oh, no, it's within the last 3 years that I had a little bit of a binge, but it was only a few sessions. I rediscovered StarCraft.
Oh, that's one of the games my brother and I used to play like crazy when we were kids.
Yeah, same. Yeah, and I used to play a lot of stuff. I think it's probably during design school when I was still playing quite heavily. And as I sort of realized how, I suppose, important it was to me, at a certain point, I sort of realized how much, where the time balance was. And I turned gaming off at some point during that period and sort of focused on probably my 4th year of school was where I sort of switched focus a bit and kind of never really got back into that space in a big way. But I don't know.
On StarCraft, do you hear the Zerg noises in movies ever?
Do I hear them in movies? I can't.
Like sound effects. Oh man, I hear it all the time. Like, I mean, I'm playing that game for like 20 years now. And it's like every movie with an alien in it, I hear that like creepy Crowley Zerg noises. I always find it funny. I'm like, oh, there's only 6 noises we use for aliens, apparently, and Zerg is one of them. That's a deep cut for all you
I like it.
non-Starcrafters.
I think my equivalent these days in terms of that sort of headspace is probably podcasts. So looping back to Reply All, I listened to the last episode last night on my ride home. And I've got this funny thing with podcasts because I can't listen to them when I'm doing sort of active brain work, like, you know, quoting sales.
Yep.
Anything computery, I typically can't sort of listen to anything but music. But when I do listen to podcasts in bulk is when I've been on the tools for extended periods of time. So like, you know, last year trying to get a big job out the door, it was, you know, just me on the weekend, headphones in, listening to like back-to-back episodes of Reply All or something like that. And so I get this thing where I've linked very specific memories to episodes.
Oh, interesting.
So like, it's kind of almost in a photographic way of like, I'm picturing an orbital sander on a birch top with Osmo oil and the smell and the feel of that oil going in linked to this moment in a podcast.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've got hundreds of these little links to like menial production processes and some moment in a podcast.
Interesting. That used to happen with me for music all the time when I was a kid. Like I have specific songs and specific driving instances of like a certain vehicle I had in high school, you know? So I get that. What was the Reply All episode? Do you remember that you were
that link
sanding birch tops?
I couldn't give you the episode.
Nah.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I love that show. I mean, not to dive too deep into that. It was such a great show. Like really nothing like it. Maybe the equivalent would be like the internet version of This American Life, potentially. I feel like they did stories in a different way than most. And they always had this amazing like catch to them or like a solution that was like, what, how did that happen out of nowhere? Or you found the right person and then kind of had a crappy year or so after that whole scandal and kind of felt like it died at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that they managed to get a really good balance between sort of trivial, techie, fun stuff and humor and stories that, you know, make you cry. Like,
yeah.
I remember over the years, like if I ever sort of tear up listening to a podcast, I'm like, oh, Jam, you have not had enough sleep. I'm working too hard because I know that tiny little anecdote in that podcast just made me cry, which is fine and great, important, but it was kind of this trigger point of like, oh, okay, I'm crying again. Like I've been working too hard. I haven't had enough sleep. Cool.
I totally get that. Yeah.
Note to self.
Crying at my desk. Nobody notices. Oh, I've noticed you on that topic. I think I've seen videos you've posted somewhere. What do you do? I didn't realize you used Osmo till like this week, which is interesting because we love that stuff. And it's just interesting to see it spread throughout the world in different ways. What do you use? Do you use a sander with that? Like a pad somehow? Was that something? Is that what that was? Is it absorbing then or are you spreading it at that point?
We spread it.
Hypnotic. Erotic.
Oh, look, it's a deep conversation, Osmo application.
Sexy.
Yeah, it is. Joe and Kyle will be into this, don't worry.
Typically, we spread it with a white Scotch-Brite attached to a pneumatic orbital sander.
Oh, interesting.
So tip a bit of, like, assuming we're doing a big surface here, like a tabletop, tip a bit of Osmo on, orbital it on with a Scotch-Brite. And that kind of really pushes it into the pores of the timber. But it's quite an uneven coat at this point. Kind of spread it, you know, both axes, get full coverage, and then switch the Scotch-Brite off the orbital, put a clean white microfiber, just Velcroed straight onto the orbital, and then polish it. Not polish it, but, you know, buff it flat with the orbital with the microfiber cloth.
Nothing else? You don't like wipe it up first?
No. Because the Scotch-Brite's got it quite flat and consistent. Like, it's still a bit lumpy and weird, but then you come back with the microfiber and that flattens it off nicely. So that's kind of first coat, then maybe sand, mid-coat sand with 800 grit, something really fine just to knock the dust off the top. And then repeat that process for at least one more coat, but sometimes a third on a tabletop.
Wow. It's very interesting. I kind of learned through watching people do it on YouTube with little Scotch-Brites, but it was always like a hand process. We've always done them. A lot of furniture, it feels like you can't get it. You have to kind of do stuff by hand like that anyway, certain shapes, but.
Yeah, like a table leg or something, like on an open desk leg, we just rag it all in.
Yeah.
Big, juicy, wet rag of Osmo and just get it everywhere and then come back with a dry microfiber or semi-dry microfiber and just like take off all the excess, and that's fine for more complex shapes.
Your foreplay just blows my mind.
This is some good process porn. I know this is what the people come for. So I wanted to get into it. Now that's very interesting. It must also, that probably helps use less on the, to spread it around that way, because then you don't have much, like we've used like rollers, little foam rollers before. And that's pretty efficient, but I'd say the worst is just dabbing at cloth and then rubbing it, or if you just do it by hand with something, it feels like you use the most that way.
Yeah, you're going to lose a lot in the cloth, right?
Yeah.
We've dabbled with this technique. I like when I see people using like a rubber plastic scraper to apply it. That's another good. I've seen that like flooring contractors do that, or like COC do that with they used to do that with big tabletops. I remember when COC came out and visited us, there was a lot of Osmo talk at the time. Well, everyone's got different methods.
Yep.
But yeah, we tried that for a while with the scraper, and that's quite good. So Aaron, who works here, he's kind of always been the Osmo king. He kind of fell into a spot years ago where he was the one making all our tables. So therefore he was the one doing the most sort of Osmo application. And there's probably thousands of words written in Workflowy about how to do it in our production standards. And then, there's been lots of different versions of that over the years as we've changed our techniques. But
very cool.
Yeah, I'd love to try a UV cured Osmo at some point. Have you ever looked at that?
I haven't.
It's pretty sweet.
Do you use it for
light and it's done?
That is crazy. It dries so dang fast. That's like one of the things we love about it is how fast it always dries. Like it seems like you can't mess it up in a certain way. You just keep knocking it down and rubbing a little bit back, and it's good again.
Yeah. It's good in that sense. But we only use it on a few products. Typically, we spray a polyurethane clear coat, water-based clear coat on most products.
Yeah. I'm jealous of your spray booth. That's something
it's so good.
Basically chose a mill instead of a spray booth.
Yeah,
which
I can understand why.
I don't know at this point. Like, hopefully we find a good use for that dang thing, but
mill's much more exciting.
For definitely.
But spray booth gets a lot of work.
I bet. Do you have multiple people that do the spraying?
Yeah, pretty much everyone.
Wow. Nice.
Sprays. Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, I can understand why businesses do this and they just have one finisher. But and maybe we'll get to that point in the same way that we've got a CNC machinist now, like a lead machinist. Maybe we'll have a lead finisher one day, but it's always felt like one of those jobs to me that's pretty repetitive and meaningful. Yeah. And maybe you can get excited about like the new, new gear and get your processes really dialed. And maybe, obviously there are professional finishers out there who are really into it and great at it.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get to that point. But at the moment, it's one of those jobs that just pretty much anyone can do. We're all trained up to a point where anyone's comfortable jumping in the booth and laying down some sweet coats of clear.
Yeah, I think it'd be tough. I guess I know very little about finishing, as exemplified by my asking. I also just like to hear about how other people. Osmo seems like one of those things that can be like completely different based on who's applying it. But spray finishing, I don't know much about, and it's always seemed like I've heard there's always like one or two people that do most of it, and that does tend to cause a bottleneck because I know like one of our neighbors that does some painting, they only have one painter. And it comes in, I think he comes in like once or twice a week. And other than that, they just wait for him to come in,
Yeah.
In that case, I think it's a little bit more skill based, but
It is very skill based, I think.
yeah.
To do it well. Yeah, definitely. Our spray booth is a bit of a bottleneck for us. So we've got a 2.4 meter wide water wall. If you haven't seen it on Instagram, and the water wall's fantastic. We've only cleaned it out once in the 3 years we've had it set up.
The heck's a water wall?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Water wall spray booth.
I'll have to look at this.
Yeah. So basically, it's a tank of water. It's probably
Oh wow.
1,000 liters of water in the bottom,
Oh,
and a huge fan that powers the airflow up top. And miraculously, through some magic of like angled steel battens, it sucks water up to the top tank.
mm-hmm.
There's no pumps in it. It's completely sort of static other than that fan sitting on top. And it magically sucks water up and then creates this waterfall effect. And so the overspray gets captured by the waterfall and then filtered behind in a series of wet battens and stuff, and produces really clean air out of the exhaust.
Do you exhaust it outside?
Yeah, it goes up through the roof.
Okay. I was like, for a second, I was thinking like it's so clean that you just put it back into the shop, and it's like, holy moly.
Probably could, because we're using water-based paints. Probably actually could do that. I don't. If you're using oil-based or solvent-based paints, I don't think that would be a good idea. But yeah, it's cool. And so then there's a coagulant that's added to the water that just makes all the paint particles kind of stick together and float to the bottom. Sink to the bottom. And then
Amazing.
Annually or whatever service schedule, you got to get in there and like shovel out all this like goop.
Mm-hmm. Clean out the McDonald's fryer.
Yeah, it's one of those jobs. But it's a good thing. But yeah, we're maxing out capacity in that booth. Like we've got, just looking at our table, we've got about 45 jobs live at the moment, and the majority of those have got clear coat on them. And so yeah, it's a pretty busy corner of the workshop.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one thing we've never really offered, and I'd found some outsourcing of finishing, but it doesn't ever, if you can offer it, I think it would be a lot smoother for the client and for us, but never really done finishing for people because it's just, I don't know. It's just tough when you don't have a space dedicated to it. Like you got to really control the air, and we're not.
Totally. Our next thing is to build a bit of a drying room, because it's, it's really cold at the moment. Probably not by American standards, but for Australia, it's pretty cold. Like it's probably -1 at the moment.
It's pretty cold.
And when you're spraying a whole bunch of water-based clear on parts and the workshop's, close to zero, it's not a particularly happy time for paint drying.
Yeah. A very short story about that is when I got my first shop out of the garage, I went into this shared shop and it had like 26-foot high ceilings, and it was basically an open shed on the ends. And it was super cold that winter. And the space that I actually got was a spray booth that was unpermitted from the city. And I remember seeing on the door of it when I went to go tour the space, like where I was supposed to move in, there was still the spray booth. There's a ticket from the city. It was like $30,000 fine. And I was just like, that's literally always scared me to like, we're not doing anything close to unpermitted spraying, because that's a crazy amount of money. But I got that shop space because that person didn't get a permit.
Sheesh. Yeah. So we want to build a little drying room. I'd love to do it with a sawdust burning heater. So we get our sawdust happening as the heat source for that drying room, but we need to get the insurance company on board before we do that.
Like heat some water outside or something, and then like keep the burning outside of your space so that it's not
that's one way to
a
do
radiator.
It. Yeah, make like a hydronic system. Bring the warmth in. But maybe by next winter we'll have something sorted out.
Yeah.
But our winters are pretty mild. Like it's cold now because it's 7 a.m. and it's probably frosty out there, but by 10 o'clock it'll be sunny and like warm, and we can push drying trolleys out into the sun. And
Yeah. Use your solar panels somehow to like re-radiate inside.
Well, that's the other approach. It's just to use that excess electric energy. It's pretty more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the dust version. Make pucks.
That'd be nice.
Just don't tell anybody. They'll never know. How would they ever know?
How would they ever know when we've published something on the internet?
I don't know. Don't know. What are you going to work on this week?
Oh, this week's pretty much over for me. Being Thursday.
Just forget about that.
Oh,
By next week.
I've got a planning session with the business coaches this morning.
Ooh.
Which goes pretty much all morning.
Wow.
And then afternoon, I'll probably do some frantic quoting for things that I've promised people this week, and the day will be over.
Mm-hmm.
End of story.
Yeah.
How about you?
We're kind of working out the last final scale up production kinks of dust boots. I've got to quote stuff, deduct the Tower of Duck. I'm starting to work on a little bit of my R&D time. Will probably be spent the aluminum pedestals for the ATC. I really want to
Cool.
start to prototype those in a way that's producible a larger scale, because that would be a sweet job for the mill to start working on.
Mm-hmm.
And people are starting to ask about those, which is nice, because my whole thought was that they would work hand in hand with the dust boot, and people seem interested in those. Yeah.
Maybe we could replace our janky carousel tool changer with one of those.
I always thought it's funny because I think the carousels are kind of cool. And yours, whenever you have it, right? It's like, now you want the opposite, and I'm like, oh, the carousel's pretty cool and fast.
It's really not fast. Yeah, cool. Exciting.
Yeah. Very cool.
Good. Are you still managing to do a little bit of default diary structure?
I got real bad the last few weeks with my lack of being in a normal place and time. And I'd like to get back into that. Also, just the thing I've struggled with is when I don't have the things for each of the periods of time, then I kind of let the whole thing slide. But I think my favorite part that I think just stuck because I don't like doing it is I don't feel so guilty about not doing quotes immediately. I feel fine. I'm like, well, this isn't the time to do quotes. That's tomorrow at whatever time.
Yeah, that worked well for me too. Nice.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I'm curious to see how yours evolves now that you've changed so much of your responsibilities.
Yeah, it's always a bit of a moving beast, but
yeah. All right, we should head off.
Ponzi scheme.
Business Ponzi scheme.
We taking next week off? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think probably best. I'll be doing some form of camping.
Enjoy.
Yeah, can't sit in my bed and podcast from an Airbnb this time. It's my little time off this summer.
Enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, see you, man.
Thanks. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.
Well, we'll get back to our Ponzi schemes.
Yes. Sounds good. See ya.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.